Hi folks, it's John Nizman from lastchanceautorestore.com, and today I'd like to share with you the progress on this custom build of the 1972 Chev Corvette that we've been working on. So I guess it's safe to call this a resto mod, because what we've done, the main difference, instead of being a small block carbureted engine, is we now have an LS motor. So we have a much more modern drive line, and this is a rotisserie restoration. So basically, I don't want to bore you with too many details, but we did a little video showing the dashboard in the engine bay and a first startup with the engine and getting it to run. We just wanted to show not only you but our client what it looks like underneath and the amount of work that was involved with this 72 Chev Corvette. So the first thing we start with is the gas tank. It's hard to tell from here, but this is a custom special gas tank that's been modified for this application. So it's a 72 Corvette. The gas tank looks like a normal 72 Corvette, but because it's an LS motor and requires substantial amount of PSI for the fuel system, we have a completely different tank baffle system and fuel pump and fuel pump regulator. So this, if we didn't go the route of this custom gas tank and we just had the normal 72 gas tank with an inline filter, it's not going to be enough PSI for this LS engine under cornering and so on. Because there's been some guys that have done conversions or attempted to do conversions with an LS motor in the older style Corvettes, and they end up starving for fuel. So the fuel sloshes along, doesn't have the proper PSI, and cars are stalling and quitting. So it's very important that you follow the proper steps and procedures to make sure that the build will be enjoyable for years to come. So just wanted to point that out. It's kind of boring, but it's really important for this build with the tank and the sending unit and the amount of pressure the LS motor requires. So as I mentioned earlier, this body was completely pulled off the frame. The frame was completely disassembled, and it was sandblasted and painted, and all the components have been either reconditioned or brand new. So you'll see in the back we've added some enhancements. So in terms of the suspension, this rear leaf is a mono leaf as opposed to a steel leaf, and we have all new components here. You can see we have everything essentially is new. All of our bushings, our stabilizer bar that we have coming across. Originally this small block car did not have a stabilizer bar, but it was an option on the big block 72 Corvette. Because of the LS motor and the added torque, we wanted to give it a little bit better handling, so we've added this rear torsion bar setup, and you can see we have all new hardware, all new fasteners and bushings, and then when you come across, obviously the same thing here. So you've got all new hardware, shocks, calipers, rotors, and all that kind of fun stuff. And then as you come forward, you can see all of our mounting points. They're upgraded and new. We have all new parking brake cables and set up for the parking brake cable. We have new rubber flex lines. We have all new copper. This is lifetime nickel copper brake line tubing. So we've made all of this for the brake lines. We also have the same setup for fuel. You can see we're underneath the battery, and we have all new cables, new connectors, and new hardware. You can see the Crossmember is all nice and shiny, so it's like brand new. And then we come down a little further. This is a very common area that they rust out in the Corvettes. Being a 72, they're notorious for rotting out in the frame area, which was really strong on this car, but also these pockets, these seat pockets that are down below. So they're brand new and they've been replaced. And then you have the new spring and setup for the parking brake. And this is a little bit tricky because we have the upgraded transmission LS motor, so now we're a 4-speed automatic. There's quite a few modifications that needed to be done for this Crossmember, which is original 72. And in previous videos, when we talk about building a resto mod and changing things. So the beauty of this 72 Corvette, from the outside when it's down on the ground, appearance-wise it would look just like a stock 72. However, underneath we've made quite a few changes. So as I mentioned, the LS motor, but something that's really important, and that's maintenance and servicing down the road. So imagine someone needs to do some work on this transmission or on the engine. If you didn't make certain provisions, it would be, I'm not saying a nightmare, but it'd be very, very costly for the client or whoever owns this car to have maintenance done. So for example, and this is really important, so this main crossmember is a factory crossmember that goes across here. You can see these two holes. This would be for the original setup for exhaust system. So with a small block 305, you'd have your exhaust pipes coming through here and continuing through the back. Now we've changed this whole setup, and I'll share with you in a couple of minutes, because we've got the side pipes as opposed to the straight pipes. But originally the exhaust came through here. Now if you need to work on the drive shaft or any components, tailstock seal, or anything to do with the transmission in terms of sensors and that sort of neat stuff, you need to have access to it. So what we did, as you can see here, it looks probably, if I didn't point it out, that you think that would be stock, but this is totally different. So we have a mounting system here, which is not factory and not original. So we have this whole mounting setup that is made specifically for this 4-speed automatic transmission that's hooked up to the LS motor. These mounting points are removable. So what we did is we measured and cut this cross member, and then we welded these plates on and this hardware top and bottom. So these mounting points are extremely important, because if you ever need to do anything with this transmission, if we left this solid like it was in 72 in the factory, I'm not really sure, other than pulling the whole engine and transmission, you would have to pull the whole assembly out through the front. So you're removing your hood, your radiator, unhooking everything, and you're pulling engine and transmission out through the front. So we make provisions whenever we can, thinking long-term later on down the road. We want this to be an enjoyable experience with the customer, whoever is driving this car. So if we need to do something to the transmission, then we undo these bolts, support the transmission and the mount assembly, this unit comes out, and then the technician, whoever it is able to work on that, service U-joints, do whatever they need to do without having to pull the whole motor out. So this is kind of an important thing, and it's one of the many things that we think about here at Last Chance Auto Restore. It's one thing to come up with the idea and then build it, but then you have to make sure that you have proper planning so it's enjoyable later on. So rather than boring with that too much longer, we'll continue on with the conversion. So when we come up towards the front, you can see the bottom side of this LS engine, and we've got quite a bit going on here. So this original oil pan has been replaced with this Holley, and I don't think the camera can probably pick it up. Because we have some clearance issues with the steering and this style of steering, we replaced the original LS engine oil pan with this aftermarket Holley. It's made for this application. So it's a specific oil pan which gives us lots of volume for oil, and it gives us the clearance that we need for this style of steering. And you can see the whole steering mechanism with lines and so on have all been replaced. We have all new tie rod ends and so on. So all of your steering components, control arms, bushings and ball joints, they're also all brand new. Your idler arm and all that kind of fun stuff. And then when you look straight up here, you can see some neat things. First of all, we have, as I mentioned earlier, this nickel copper line. So we have the lifetime line all set up here for our cooling, going from the transmission to the upgraded radiator that we have and back again. We have a, some people refer to it as a performance style starter. And then right directly straight up is we have these aftermarket mounts. And these are aluminum billet style mounts that helps with this conversion of the LS engine, because it's a very unique setup for the 72 Corvette, or most Corvettes, in how they mount the engine to the actual frame. So these mounting points that's welded to the frame are offset and they're specific to Corvette. So there is a company that makes these adapter plates, and depending on where you want the engine in the engine bay, they have different styles. So we have it set up with the billet style, and then you can see the exhaust. This is custom made. So in a previous video I had mentioned when we started the vehicle that we've got bungs welded in with O2 sensors. So you can see we have, because the side pipes are side exhaust, there's always a little bit of flexing. There's torque flex with the engine, and there's a little bit of movement and vibration. So what we want to make, what we wanted to do is make sure that we set up for that. So this is all custom made. We have the original exhaust manifolds, and they're staggered. You can see they're in a totally different location. So it became a little bit of a challenge, because we have to use, with this application, the original exhaust manifolds. So these pipes and exhaust plates that we had to make, we wanted to make sure that when they come out to the side of the car, that they match on both sides when they come down the sides, because the exterior looks exactly like factory. To make that happen, you can see these are staggered, because the manifolds on the LS engines come out at different points and different angles. So this is quite a bit of work. It doesn't look like much now because it's all done, but you can see the angle coming out here from the manifold versus coming out on this side. Okay, so just something that's kind of neat. It looks simple now, but it was quite challenging to get all the measurements and bends correct, and we have an exhaust bender here at Last Chance. So we make our own exhaust pieces and then welded it all in with the plates and the appropriate bungs and the O2 sensors hooked up to the painless harness. So as you come more towards the front, excuse me, you can see once again our cross members, all nice shiny gloss paint. Stabilizer bar, it's a heavier stabilizer bar along the front. Once again, we have all new mounting points, all new hardware, new shocks. It's a little bit dusty. It's been here on the hoist up and down, so it's quite dusty in here. So you can see where everything is, every component basically is brand new. So all of your control arm bushings and so on. And then as you come a little more forward, you can see the bottom side of the radiator, and this is a 4-core aluminum rad. It's on a very specific angle for airflow and to keep this LS motor cool and happy in this 72 Corvette. And you also notice how shiny everything is here. We have all new hardware. We have the new little spoiler on the bottom, and then you can see the nice chrome, the nose, and so on. So when you're looking from here and you basically just kind of walk down through the underside of the 72 Corvette, this is quite attractive. So we're quite proud of this. This is one of our resto mods, I guess you would call it, that we're working on. And you can see how nice and clean it is underneath and the amount of detail that's required when we go to build one of these. So once again, this is a 1972 Chev Corvette LS conversion with a lot of upgrades. So thank you for viewing this. I'm John from lastchanceautorestore.com.